2026 is going to be an awesome year. We got some pretty cool stuff coming up. First off, we got Foundations of Recovery. This is our flagship program. We're starting it in January.
This is for anyone, man, woman, or couple who wants to come and reclaim their heart from shame, trauma, and betrayal. We start off with an education on all sorts of principles, give you the common language. We feed you from a fire hose in terms of all things recovery.
It is such a great start to recovery. And we get at the roots of things, Tyler. This isn't like any other program. Like, this is our healing journey in process, and Foundations is where we begin.
If you look at the value that you're getting there to kick off a good recovery with all of the right education, all of the right language, and a team to get you started while also being directed by Brandon and myself through the whole process, what a deal.
So if you're interested, if you're struggling, if you've been wanting to do something for a long time, jump into this. This only comes around every so often, and we would love to have you there.
Click the link in the description to sign up for it. And to make it even sweeter, we're also including a raffle for a free pass to the Radiant Dawn retreat. Anyone who signs up for Foundations will be added to the raffle for that free Radiant Dawn pass. If you're a man and you sign up for Foundations, your name still gets entered, and you can give that pass away if you win it to any woman that you want to.
So what you're saying, Tyler, is if you sign up and participate in Foundations, you could possibly go to Radiant Dawn for free?
That's exactly what I'm saying, which is crazy because Foundations by itself is already an insane value.
Man, I sound so salesy. But it actually is awesome. So come to Foundations. And even if you don't come to Foundations, sign up for Radiant Dawn. It's beyond therapy, the best healing experiences that you can have.
Click the link below and come join us. How can my wife and children see me for something other than the things I've done? Welcome to the Real Talk Recovery Podcast with the Therapy Brothers.
We're brothers, we're therapists, and we know recovery.
Bring your stories, your questions, your successes with real recovery.
Hey, Tyler.
What's going on, Brandon?
Not much, just doing my thing, you know?
Yeah, good. How's your weekend?
Weekend was great. It was awesome. So what's your plans for Thanksgiving?
We've got family. We got my wife's side of the family coming up. We're going to see some family from California that we haven't seen in quite a while. So he's got basically a whole 15-passenger van full of kids. So it's going to be an awesome weekend.
Well, that sounds fun. Uncle Tyler resting with all the kids.
Their kids are awesome, man. We're going to have a good time.
Yeah, well,
yeah,
that'll be fun for them to hang out with their Uncle Tyler. Get to know you better. Yeah. Well, awesome. Sounds good, Tyler. I say we dive into the episode here. All right, Larry, welcome to the show.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. If you could just give us some background, we don't need your full autobiography, but enough pieces to the puzzle, and then ask any questions that you have.
Yeah. So I've been married almost 15 years. And in that there has been a series of betrayals that I've, had to my wife, and it started, fairly early on, like 2 years into the marriage. There was an emotional affair. There's, an internet addiction piece of chatting with other women that was found while she was in labor with our first child. And then another one while she was pregnant with our third child as well, that she found on our anniversary day. There's been about 5 years of financial infidelity as well. Something I haven't heard you guys talk a lot about, but has played a role in in our marriage. And then the most recent would be I had a 15-month physical affair with D-Day being last October of 21. And so that's kind of a mini background, obviously not doing a lot of full justice to everything my wife's been through and everything I've put her through over our 15 years of marriage.
Okay. Where are you at now in terms of recovery?
So I started seeing a CSAT back in August. After we had done some marriage counseling, but it just wasn't quite doing it. My CSAT actually recommended kind of break away from that, just because there just wasn't enough. It just wasn't really doing anything for myself and my wife. I did see I'd seen an individual counselor before that, but it seemed like I just left always feeling like she was looking at me as the victim and not my wife. And it was really hard to cope with that. I didn't feel like I was getting anything from that. And I hear a lot about that in recovery where, people, it takes finding the right counselor. So I feel like I'm in a better place with the CSAT I'm currently seeing. Still early on, still working on, the disclosure letter. We did do a fair recovery, but admittingly, I didn't, I wasn't nearly, I wasn't honest during that process, which has also led to a lot of mistrust. Now I've probably done more damage in the year of recovery than I've even piled on more damage by the trickle truth that's come out over the last, year, up to about last month. So it's just kind of owning, where I've been, and I guess, trying to, help, get to where, my wife and kids can see me differently, for who, the things I've done. Because, just talking to you guys, and just being able to say everything, it's, I've caused a lot of hurt and pain. And it really is, just having to think about those things is a lot.
Larry, could you just, even just right now, could you speak a little bit to your motivation for why you're now with your current CSAT, or even why you chose to call into the show today? What are your reasons for doing the things that you're doing?
Yeah, I want my family. I want my wife. I love my wife very much, and I love my kids. And I don't want to be that person that I was when I was, inside this, just going through the cycle of the things I was feeling, and just the emptiness that I was holding, and everything that came out of it. I just want I just want to be the husband and dad that I'm meant to be, and that's kind of where I'm at. That's really the motivation, is that I just want to be that person. I know I can be that man. It's just finding that path, and letting go of all these things that have plagued me since I was probably 11 or 12.
Larry, when you say you don't want to be that man, that sounds great, and I've heard that many times from a lot of guys, right? What are you willing to do to not be stuck in that hell that you were in?
Yeah, I guess it's a full change. I guess it's being able to step outside of myself and see the hurt and pain that I've caused everyone in my life. Being able to do things differently, to not harbor, the resentment and bitterness that I've placed on the people, to justify my behaviors and actions that I was, doing when I was acting out. Just to come into being seen, and just to be authentic. I think just actually to be me, and to know that that's okay, and to let people accept me for who I am, and know that not everybody will, for the things I've done.
I think that's one of the hard things that kind of goes back to your question a little bit, is that let's say you actually take everything you just said and you start to put those things into action, and you start to become, basically a new man. The people around you aren't going to necessarily see it the same way, at the same level or the same pace that you're going to see it at. And that's part of the struggle, is if the focus is on how can they change how they see me, you're going to be pretty frustrated, because the chances are you're going to start to change how you see you, maybe a little bit differently at a different pace than other people around you are going to see. And the measuring stick has to start from that inside out kind of a place. You said a phrase a second ago that I think it'd be worth exploring a little bit. You said, I need to learn to do things differently. And I want to just ask you, it sounds like at least for the last year, maybe more than that, you've done things. You said you were in a fair recovery for a year.
We did a I don't know, it was like a 5-month affair recovery program. Yeah.
Okay. So
Yes.
you did an affair recovery program. You went to couples counseling. I imagine in the affair recovery program, they talked about at least similar principles to what you might hear on the show.
Yes.
And you did all of that. Is it doing different things, or is it doing those things in a different way that matters?
I would say it's doing those things in a different way, because I would say that during that program, I wasn't being completely transparent. Still having a hard time being brutally honest with what I was doing and owning the things that I had done. And still, a lot of, blame shifting and being defensive and just lack of empathy. Still seeing it from my side, having a hard time to see it from, where my wife is sitting. And I will say that, since I've started with a CSAT, that is, I'm feeling that change. And actually feeling, I think that's the biggest key for me, is that, you go so long without actually feeling, I guess, emotion, in the things that you're doing, that you kind of lose that touch with reality, because you're living, in this dual world of fantasy that really doesn't really give you anything. It's just there.
Right.
Think about why you acted out, like why the affairs. And it's interesting that you've had relationships. So you've had emotional affairs, you've had physical affairs.
It actually sounds like it's gotten systematically more intense, where it was, whatever the issues were, and then you kind of had an emotional affair, then you had chats with women, then you had 5 years of financial infidelity, and then this 15-month actual physical sexual affair. It's almost like it's like up the ante consistently over the years.
But there's a certain type of acting out here, which is connection with people. So it's not just you're visually looking at videos of porn, like you're chatting with women, you're having affairs, so Larry, like if you were to kind of analyze this a little bit and look at it, what has this acting out provided for you or given to you that you're seeking? No, that's a weird question.
I would say escape. I feel like when things get tough, that I have a hard time handling. So I run from that and go to a behavior that was, that I ran to probably, as I was a teenager and maybe into college a little bit, of being online and just going there for comfort, or what I felt like was comfort.
Okay, but what I want to ask you is, okay, yes, it was escape, but why was connecting with people and getting people to want you and desire you so intoxicating?
I feel like there's I would say some type of validation that goes on with that for me. Being able to just connect, to feel important, to feel like I'm doing well, being able to, I guess, meet. It just feels something in me that I'm still trying to put my finger on.
So Larry, what you just said, it's really interesting. Okay. You listen to what you just said, and then your question to us is, how do I get my wife and kids to see me differently? And so you're seeking validation and connection from women. And now with recovery, you want your wife and kids to validate you and see you differently and think that you're good and think that you're desirable and okay. It's the same pattern, just in it's the opposite side of things, but it's the same thing. One of the ways for your wife and kids to see you differently, Larry, is for you to let go of needing them to see you differently. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes. I mean, as much as I can. Yes.
Yeah. I know it's okay to want them to like you, but yeah,
it's a catch-22 though, because, and it's what Tyler was talking about earlier. What is the intent behind your recovery work? Where is your heart at? And if your intention is to continue to try to get validation from other people in order to feel okay and to feel good, then you're still acting from that really unhealthy place. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
And sometimes like therapists can miss this of like, hey, you're doing really good stuff. Like, wow, look at you, look at you, look at you. And it'll feed this same cycle again and again.
I think, I'd like to maybe backtrack a little bit, Brandon, because Larry, you kind of just gave yourself, I think, some insight to things that you said you're looking to escape. I'd be curious about what you are trying to escape. And there's probably like layers to that. There's probably like the day-to-day stressors or anxiety, but there's also maybe something deep inside that you're trying to escape. But then I'd also be curious to know that what you get from it is that level of validation. And that's to me where the place where some exploration really could be beneficial is, where in your life did you, if you were to sit with yourself and just let whatever rises to the surface rise to the surface, where did you learn that you weren't valid?
I would say growing up, my dad was by far my toughest critic. And nothing was ever good enough. The degree I picked for, college. I, obviously had, 3 younger siblings, and it seemed like my bar was always higher and hard to meet. And so he, there was a lot of pressure that I didn't really discuss, but if I did have feelings, or those got, shoved away quickly, dismissed, kind of just not talked about. Sexuality really wasn't talked about either. And those were, big components. And I know you guys have talked a lot about just, I guess, my relationship with my mom as well. A lot of times I was her confidant. She would, talk about, the pains that she was having in the marriage, and just some of the things that, her and my dad were going through. I don't know that it's to the, the point of, the pieces that, like with the incest that you guys talk about, but sometimes in hearing some of your callers, I can feel that. I can feel that when they talk about their relationship with their parents. But yeah, my dad was definitely a big judge of kind of where I sat in life. And even at 16 said, hey, you're 16 now, you don't really need me, and you can, just don't end up in jail. That was kind of what he told me.
He said you'll end up in jail?
Just don't end up in jail.
Oh, just don't end up in jail. Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So Larry, as you're talking, man, could I just ask you to go into yourself for a minute and just tell me what's going on inside your body? Like, what are you experiencing physically and emotionally? Do you even just bringing this back up right now?
It's a little nerve-wracking. It brings up a lot of just not, some anger. There's some anger that, that they just weren't there for me.
Yeah.
And just the hurt. I just think seeing and just saying, and just a lot of hurt and just anger.
Yeah. This is going to be kind of a weird question, but what age does this part of you that's coming up feel like? How old does it feel?
I would say 13, 14, somewhere in there.
Yeah, you could almost hear the shift in your voice, that there's something there. This is where Brandon was going with you, I think, Larry, is that there's a piece of you, there's a 13-year-old boy somewhere in there that lost his heart when he felt like he wasn't valid anymore. And then he was living in a world where the feminine is what he was chasing, trying to find his value, and he's producing it for his mom. And then there's a sexual aspect to it. And it kind of makes sense pretty quickly why things in your addiction have gone the way that they've gone. And I'm not saying that to excuse the behaviors you've had, but I wonder if that 13-year-old kid ever gets any of your attention in a compassionate and a loving kind of a way.
Yeah, I struggle with my path, with that person that I was, and not being strong enough, and not I don't know, not standing up for myself.
You were a 13-year-old kid, dude.
Yeah.
How old are your kids, Larry?
They are 12, 10, 8, 6, and 15 months.
Okay. So if your 12-year-old was feeling the same way and they're like, man, I'm not strong enough to stand up to my dad or my mom, would you go to them and be like, hey, you're an idiot, you need to stand up to us more?
No, I can't say I would do that.
Okay, why not?
Because that's a lot to put on a 12-year-old.
Okay.
And
So now,
what yeah.
so now you live in a world where your adult self, who's actually about the emotional age of a 13-year-old, decides to go and criticize that 13-year-old kid in order to try to solve the problem. And for some reason, shocker, it never works.
It never works. And Larry, you make perfect sense. Right, Tyler? Like when he tells his trauma, like
100%.
I hate to say this, but if I would have met you 15 years ago, and if you would have told me your trauma, I would have said, watch out, because you're probably going to go act out with sex addiction. And because just your question was not answered as a child. And where Tyler's going is, don't keep trying to get that question answered in all the wrong ways. So, do I have what it takes? Am I enough? Am I lovable? Am I okay? Those questions were not answered. Well, they were, and the answer you got was no, you're not. And so now as an adult, you want to take that question to the feminine, to women. So you've taken it to your wife and she hasn't given you that answer. So you took it to elsewhere. And now in your recovery, you still want to take that question out there and say, am I okay? Am I enough? Where can you take it instead?
I mean, I feel like if I knew that answer, then this would be really simple. I would say that I mean, I feel like taking it and maybe looking at it just for myself, looking at it some there, and then I would say, I don't know that I really know the answer there. Yeah.
Larry, do you know? I want to tell you something that might shock you. Do you know that all the questions that I just threw out there, am I lovable? Am I enough? Am I okay? Today, as you sit here today, with where you're at in your recovery today, with everything that you've done, do you know the answer to those questions are you are absolutely okay, that you are totally lovable, and that you are enough as you are today, not having worked recovery to get to a certain place, to do this thing, to make sure you've arrived so everybody thinks you're awesome. In your freaking mess right now, today, Larry, you are so loved. Now, I know you don't believe that, but that probably makes you feel uncomfortable, right? How does that make you feel, Larry?
Yeah, I have a hard time believing it. Just because how could, I don't know. I obviously grew up, religious, went, Catholic, went to a Catholic school. And then, I know right from wrong. So I've chosen a lot of wrong. And it's really hard to look at myself as, being, worthy of that love and that care. And I do struggle with that thought.
Larry, it sounds like you kind of answered this, but where did you learn that the only way to be lovable is if you do right?
I would just say it was just growing up, and just that's what I heard the most, whether it was, school or church or my parents. And that, yeah. And then when I did, it was that, that hiding behavior that, just trying to hide if I had made a mistake, or running from it, or denying it, or blaming it on someone else.
Okay. So if it would make sense that if you were raised in a place where the systems around you, school, work, your parents, church, they were all kind of reemphasizing a certain message, which is that the only way that you're lovable is that if you don't make mistakes. It makes sense why you develop secrecy and you feel pressure and you'd be living the life that you're living, so much so that it would become an automatic thought, and you wouldn't even have a chance to question whether or not that needed to be true. It would just be true to you. Now you're an adult man and you're recognizing that you have a thought, that this thought says that I can only be lovable if I don't make mistakes. Does that need to be true, Larry?
No.
Where does it lead you if it is true?
I would say to failing, because
Yeah.
you're never going to, nobody can live up to that.
You're screwed, man. Your life is hosed if that rule is true. And so is mine, and so is Brandon's, and so is every one of our listeners. Like, you might as well, you'd be depressed, you'd be suicidal, all of us would be, if that was true, because the truth is that you're a human being, I'm a human being, Brandon's a human being, we all make mistakes, and your kids are human beings. Your 12-year-old probably made a mistake this week. Your 12-year-old unlovable?
No, he's very lovable.
Oh, he made a mistake. So how come he's the exception?
He's not.
Oh, there you go. There's a potential for another part of truth then. And that's where I think Brandon's trying to go is what would be the other truth that could be there that might be just as true or truer than the old belief that was just automatic.
And that, I guess, would be that, you can make mistakes and live life and still be lovable, and people still care about you and see you for who you are.
Have you ever considered that this whole mess, like the relationship problems that you're having and having to go to therapy, and that this whole mess is God fighting for you?
I can see that at times. Yes, I can see different things, and and this is something. My wife just found out that she's pregnant, and so it's some. Yeah, I can see God. Yeah, working in a mysterious way. But at the same time, it's very scary because my acting out has occurred the most when she's been pregnant. So but at the same time, I can see, is it God? Is that God? Wanting change or just opportunity, or is it just love? Is it just love and just trying to show love? I do. It's just a very, and for my wife, it's scary, and there's all the emotions that go around, everything that I've done in the past, and I can see it. I have those moments where, this is God doing something, and feeling that.
I'd like to. Well, go ahead. Could I just back up a little, Brandon, before you go further with this? Because I wonder if we're stepping over something first. Is that Brandon's jumping into this idea of relationship with God, Larry? And where are you at in your own wrestle there before we come and ram God down your throat?
Oh, I mean, I pray. Not, I've definitely come back to it. I know for a long time there, I really struggled with even seeing it, and wasn't nearly, as, praying and looking towards that, and something that goes back to my mom lost the battle to Lou Gehrig's disease, in 2010, and it was a long struggle, and I really, I wrestled with, losing her, and having, just seeing that in front of me, and how could God take such a great person?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, Tyler, let's remove God from this equation for just a second. Maybe all of this stuff that's happened, Larry, is a call for you to get back into your masculine heart and your integrity. And so it's a mess, and your poor wife has to take on some of the consequences of this, right? It's not fair to her. But you're screaming out saying, I'm not okay. Something's not okay. And that's what your addiction is showing. And so now you're getting more conscious of it, and you're getting more aware, and you're realizing I haven't been living in my integrity. I haven't been living in my truth. And now you have a real, so if we can look at it from the negative of like, look at what you've done, you horrible person. Or we can look at it from a different angle of now you have an opportunity. All of this is feedback. And you have an opportunity to actually learn from this and really self-reflect and really grow into stepping into the man that you are, that is different from what your trauma and your shame and your wounds have told you who you are. Do you see what I'm saying, Larry?
Yeah, I can see that.
Now, I do believe God's a part of that. I believe God's behind it all. But whether God's behind it all or not, you can shift into living in alignment with yourself, or you can continue to live out of alignment and create these consequences still. So, yeah.
You hear the change in that, and that's where I think the benefit of, you know, something bigger than ourselves, like a relationship with God, can come in. And where Brandon was saying God's fighting for you, you know, this goes back to the John Eldridge kind of concept that says when we're wounded in our hearts the way that we are, that both the adversary and God will pursue our hearts through the wound. And it's kind of, it is kind of interesting, and it could be looked at potentially, depending on where you're at in your relationship with God, that, I mean, and this is so hard for your wife too, but could God be in the details of the fact that you get a shot to actually do it right this time with a pregnancy? Like, and actually step into that place of being the man that you know you can be. Like, that could be viewed either way as, oh my gosh, not again, I'm going to ruin it again. Or it could be, man, I got another chance and I can do this and I can figure this out. And I'm going to step into that cave again, and I'm going to, come hell or high water, I'm going to do my best, you know?
Yeah, I feel that. I mean, I feel that this is something that, you know, I don't feel like it's an accident. I feel like it is a true, God, trying to find, trying to find me, or me trying to find God. I don't know which, but I feel like it is the chance for me to step into, the person that I want to be, and the husband that I want to be to my wife, and the father I want to be to my kids, and to show something different, and to be able to kind of break the cycle, and try to start working through these things that I have so tried to run away from and hide from for so long.
So I want to ask you, Larry, I want to back up. So we've kind of gone down this road, right? We've kind of ended up here down this road a ways. I want to ask you the very question that you came on asking. So how do I get my wife and my kids to view me differently? Okay. How? Like, outline that for me a little bit.
I would say it's just showing up every day as as myself, and to live in the truth, and know that I'm going to make mistakes as a husband and as a dad, and that's okay. And that, at my job, I'm going to make mistakes, and that's okay. And that I'm still, lovable, and people still care about me, and, my family still cares about me, and that, just in that daily, in that, just in life, just living, and maybe not, shifting the focus on, people loving me versus that I am loved, and that I don't, that validation really isn't really what I'm, as much as it's what I was looking for. It's not, it's there if I just be me. I don't really need to do anything because it's there, and just to show up every day and be myself.
I love that answer.
I do too.
But it's going to come kick your ass. Life will come at you. What I mean is, like, there's going to be days when you really feel like your wife's disappointed at you, or that you're failing everywhere at work or whatever. And in those moments when the triggers come, those voices of shame are going to be really loud. Right. And so can you do what you just said, Larry, despite life coming at you in that way?
Yeah. I think that's, I definitely see that as, and I think I've been battling that, since D-Day and even further back, trying to work through those feelings. And my wife will often say that I'm really good with my words, but I'm really, crappy with my actions. And that really is resonating with me as I sit here and look at things. And like I said, since I've been working with my CSAT, that I can feel more of that and I can see that. My wife will often say, it's like you would give me three choices and I would choose the choice that hurt her the most. And trying to step back and see those choices, at times I didn't even see those as being, that there was three choices and I was choosing the choice that would hurt, her or my family the most. And being able to step into that and, look at that and say, hey, that my selfishness would take over. And so I can feel that.
I think it's interesting that we started the episode with the question, how can I get them to see me differently? And you came to the conclusion of, I need to live each day. And you said a few things. You said, becoming the husband I want to be, becoming the man I want to be, becoming the father I want to be. That's what your recovery is really about. And really it makes it sound really simple. And in some ways it is, even though it encompasses a whole bunch of work. That if you wake up today, Larry, and you just look at those things and say, what's the kind of husband and father I want to be today? And then you give whatever's in the tank, whether you have 10% in the tank or 100% in the tank, you give it all just tomorrow. And you do that one day at a time, consistently over time. The best thing you can do to have your kids and your wife change the way they see you is to forget that they're the ones that need to change. And you get busy one day at a time being the man you want to be. And that's a process that has to come back to being reminded over and over again, because the default setting wants to pull you back into being the man that everybody else tells you should be.
Tyler, it's a control issue, right?
Yeah.
Like with everything that we're talking about here, this is all like awesome, but it requires surrender. In order for you to be that authentic person that you're talking about, Larry, you have to let go of this old system that you've had from the time you were born, pleasing your mom, trying to be enough, trying to get validation. It's surrendering that. It's releasing that and saying, I'm going to let go. And I don't know if I'm going to get that validation from others. I don't know but I'm just going to be the best husband, father, man that I possibly can be, because I know deep down that I am good and that I am okay. And then you let things fall where they may. Right? But it requires that really hard letting go of that control.
Yeah, I would say that I have tried to control my life for a long time, in every aspect. And yeah, control is, letting go is scary. There is a fear there. And I think, I know you guys have had a past episode about, the money tree versus the real treasure. And so often that money tree is there. And instead of, going past that and seeing that, I go there because it's that easy road, and versus, doing a little bit more work. And like you said, given the whatever percent I have that day to get to the true treasure, because, I have an amazing wife and I have amazing kids. And I don't want to lose them. So it's just showing up and giving everything I have each day.
That emotion. Go ahead, Brandon.
No, you go.
That emotion that's coming up inside of you, Larry, where do you think that's coming from right now?
Just a place of, I would say it's just a place of love.
Yeah. See that's in you, Larry. That's in you. That's the part that you're seeking to touch and have an experience with every day. Because guess what, Larry? You're in that space right now. You're feeling that love for your wife and your kids right now. What happens to your disposition to go and act out when you're in that space?
It goes away.
Yeah, it's gone. You're not going to act out today, dude, unless you have a big vulnerability hangover after we're done. But if you get in touch with that, if you get in touch with that part of yourself that by the way, Larry, was already in you, you go find that every day, you will not have a need to act out.
Yeah, when I feel that, I don't, that desire is not there. That is something that, I have to just, like I said, just feeling that and knowing that and going to that place.
That's a love for your wife and kids. That's not them showing their love for you. That's you loving your wife and your kids.
Yeah. No, I can feel that in my, just hearing you say that and just that, that, I guess the flip that happens there, and how I, kind of project that onto other people, onto my family and onto my wife. And really it's not projecting it onto them and seeing it in myself.
Yep.
Larry, we, Tyler and I are fortunate enough to, I guess we're fortunate enough to see people on every side of recovery. So we see people at the very beginning in the pain and it's hard. It's hard to see that, but we also, the beauty of what we do is we get to see people on the other side of it. People who have gotten their question answered and are just resonating in peace and happiness and not, their lives are not perfect by any means, but they can navigate life so much better. And I just feel impressed are you familiar with Paul Young? Do you know who Paul Young is?
I studied, so I was a psychology major growing through college. So a little bit, yes. Didn't really study him deeply, but obviously I'm familiar.
So he's the author of The Shack. He's the hop on YouTube and look up Paul Young and listen to his story. Or check out Heart of Man. He produced that as well. There's principles in there that actually, in his story, that show real recovery, rather than just going through the motions. And so you can find a lot of content. I think Oprah's interviewed him several times, so there's a lot of content with Paul Young. But just go check it out. Okay.
Yeah. Thanks.
Tyler, anything else?
No, I would just echo what you just said about Heart of Man for all of our listeners too, that, when you start thinking about this concept and journey of recovery and getting to the heart of things, that show Heart of Man would be a great resource for anyone who hasn't seen it yet.
Yep. Okay, Larry. Well, thank you for coming on.
Well, I appreciate you guys having me and thanks for listening. And I appreciate all the helpful advice and everything you guys do. Like I said, I myself and my wife listen to you guys. I greatly agree. I'm very grateful for you guys. And